Hello everyone and welcome to Civic Platform. This is your host Zuher Almusre. Healthy aging, it's one of very important events organized by Manitoba Islamic Association. And the reason why I'm here, I want to hear from this event what the tips or advice that they offer for our seniors to be more subtle and confident in healthy life in Winnipeg. So let's jump right in.
Hi everyone, thank you so much Zuher for having me today and covering this presentation of mine. So my name is Nida Ghazanfar. I am a functional nutritionist and I've been working virtually with people all over North America and the UK to help them just live a more healthier life. I've been in practice for almost 4 years now, and today's topic is all about heart disease and heart health and how we can be healthier by making better food choices. There's a lot more to learn, so just follow along on this presentation that we have tonight, and thank you so much for having me, Zuher. As you know that the elderly population especially, heart disease is very prevalent in this population, and just being mindful of the foods that they're eating, the lifestyle that they are living, it can have a major impact on heart health. So I think that this presentation will help them make better choices and improve their heart health and improve their longevity. Yeah, so in today's time, I think getting the right information is of utmost importance. And being here in Winnipeg, we also have the challenge of extreme weather, right? We can't go out and be physically active 6 months out of the year. So just focusing on things that we can do inside and just staying on being active, that's a very important factor for your heart health. And I think this presentation will give them the tools that they need, the information that they need to make better choices. Okay, now let's watch the presentation. There's going to be a lot more details over there, and you'll be learning a lot more information on heart health. See you there. Assalamu alaikum. Hello everyone. Thank you so much for being here today and taking time out to be here and listen to this little talk of mine. My name is Nida Ghazanfar. I am a functional nutritionist, and I've been working with men and women from all over North America and the UK since the past 4 years now. So my job as a functional nutritionist is to work with people on just helping them and guiding them with their diet, nutrition, and lifestyle choices to make them be the best version of themselves. So today's talk is all about heart health and blood pressure management, cholesterol management, triglycerides. This is a topic that is very near and dear my heart because my father, when he was 57 years old, he had a heart attack as well. And he's now very healthy at 66, alhamdulillah. But so as you can imagine, it's very near and dear my heart. The topic for today, I chose this as the first topic, is because it's something that plagues us South Asians a lot more than the other ethnicities. It's become fashionable, really, like going back to my father, and when he sits down with his friends, they're all the same age. They're bonding over heart disease. They're talking about who takes the most cholesterol medication, whose arteries are blocked the most, and anybody who has a bypass wins the conversation. So it's funny, but it's also bizarre in a way that that's what happens as we grow older, especially in the South Asian population. Now, when I say South Asian population, I mean people from Bangladesh, Nepal, Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka. We are at a higher prevalence, we have a higher prevalence of heart disease in our ethnic group. Now, let me throw some scary stats at you before we take a deeper dive in. So in South Asian community, we have heart disease or coronary artery disease 10 years sooner than any other ethnic population. So there's something there. Either there's genetics at play or there's lifestyle factors at play as well. Now, I like to say that the genetics load the gun, but the environment pulls the trigger. What does that mean? That means that yes, of course, genetics do have a role to play in the kind of diseases that we are destined to face, but of course we can do so much to turn those genes on and off with the lifestyle choices that we make every single day. And these lifestyle choices include the way and the quality in which we're sleeping, how we move our body, the foods that we're choosing to eat 3 times a day, plus snacks, the amount of water that we drink, what we watch on the television, the kind of people that we hang out with, the conversations that we have. Everything impacts our health. Now, 25% of heart attacks occur under age 40 for us South Asian people. 50% occur under age 50, and these are just stats for us. Now, what can we do? Let's talk about these lifestyle factors. This is what I will be focusing most on. Now, number one thing that I want to talk about is inflammation. So inflammation, a lot of people always ask me, what is inflammation? Inflammation, you may have heard, is the root cause of all of the modern diseases that we are seeing. And this is not just for cardiovascular disease. This is also for cancer, this is for diabetes, all kinds of autoimmune issues that we are seeing. It starts with inflammation. Now, what is inflammation? Now, if you imagine yourself cutting into an apple or cutting some fruit, and you accidentally cut your hand, what happens? You start bleeding, there's a rush of blood and lymph and white blood cells to the area. There's a little bit of swelling there. That's something that you can actually see. You can see the swelling. But imagine the same kind of inflammation happening on a lower grade inside your body, on a chronic level. This is acute inflammation, and inflammation is not all bad, but on a low-grade scale, when it keeps on continuously happening, that's the problem. And that's something that we can't see. But we can get it measured through blood work. We can be a step ahead of it, and we can get some blood work done on a yearly basis to keep a check on inflammatory markers. What are these inflammatory markers? And feel free to take out your phones and write this stuff down if you need to, or if you have a pen or paper, feel free to take notes. So C-reactive protein is a very inexpensive test that you can ask your doctors to run to see what your inflammatory markers are doing, what inflammation is doing. Now, it's not going to tell you where the inflammation is in the body, but it's going to give you a little idea of what inflammation is doing inside the body somewhere. And then, of course, you have to work with your healthcare professional to do a little bit more deeping a little bit further to see where that inflammation could be coming from. Now, C-reactive protein is a test you can run, and then there's ESR. Now, these markers, you want C-reactive protein to be as close to 1 or 0 as possible, and then ESR as well, you want it to be under 10. Now, these markers are important. Why? Now, there's lots you can do. There's no medication for inflammation that you can take. It's all in the lifestyle. Now, another thing that you can do to manage your inflammation would be to reduce your foods, the intake of foods that are inflammatory, and increase the intake of foods that are anti-inflammatory. Now, let's talk about the anti-inflammatory foods. So I'm a big fan of adding more things in rather than taking things out. I like to believe that when you add the good stuff in, the bad stuff kind of crowds itself out on its own. So that's what I like to talk about first. So what are some of these anti-inflammatory foods that you can start incorporating in your diet right away? Turmeric is my favorite herb, and some of us are very familiar with it, right? So it's really amazing, the anti-inflammatory properties that it has. The yellow color that we get in the turmeric, that's what's responsible for the anti-inflammatory activity. And here's a little tip for you guys. If you go home and use turmeric in your cooking, just add a little bit of a sprinkle of black pepper. Black pepper will increase the activity of turmeric, the anti-inflammatory activity of turmeric by 2,000%. Can you believe it? I didn't say 200, I said 2,000%. What that means is that the anti-inflammatory activity of turmeric will be much, much better. Another thing that you can add to your diet is fatty fish. Fatty fish is high in a type of fat called omega-3 fatty acids, which our bodies are not capable of producing on its own. So we need it from our outside diet. How can we get it? We can get it through fatty fish. So wild caught preferably, if you can. Walnuts and different types of nuts like walnuts, almonds, these are all anti-inflammatories, particularly walnuts are great for heart health. And then next we have berries. You know, those deep, dark, pigmented berries. Blueberries are my personal favorite. So you can have it fresh, you can have them frozen, however you enjoy them. Both are fine. And then of course, green leafy vegetables, ginger and garlic, these are all great for you to add on your foods on a daily, everyday basis. So try to make a list and try to have 3 to 4 foods from this list to have those anti-inflammatory benefits. Now let's talk a little bit about the foods that we should try to avoid. So I just say however you are used to adding these foods, just making sure you're adding them in is the first step. And then of course there are ways that you can increase, like I said, like the turmeric, you can add a little bit of black pepper in addition to the turmeric and make it more bioavailable in the body. That's a few things that you can do. With berries, I think raw consumption would be much better. You will preserve the antioxidants better. So raw is the way to go. But that doesn't mean that you can't have cooked blueberries or a jam form either. Like you want to aim for variety more than just sticking to one type of way of eating. So every time you cook something, even green leafy vegetables, when you have them raw, you get more vitamin C, but when you cook them, you get more mineral content. So it's the more variety you have, just get them in. I always like to say that the best thing to do is to have and enjoy the foods that you know you will enjoy. Because if you're not going to enjoy something, you're not going to be consistent with it, and consistency is the name of the game here. So if you enjoy raw vegetables, go ahead and enjoy them. If you enjoy it cooked, have it cooked. And then once you embrace these vegetables in your diet, then you can always go for variety and try to mix it up a little bit. Thank you for that question. Okay, so we've spoken about some ways, and inflammation is one of the things that causes cholesterol to go up. Now, of course, we can't have a discussion about heart health without talking about cholesterol, right? Every single person here knows over the age of 18 that if there's heart disease in the picture, there's some conversation of cholesterol happening as well. Now, cholesterol has become like, in the 1960s and 70s, everybody was like, yes, cholesterol is it, it's causing heart disease, that's the problem. Now this research is much, much more nuanced, and it's a little bit more, like, we've forgiven cholesterol a little bit. We need to understand something that you will not hear in popular media is that cholesterol is actually also very important. We will all die without cholesterol. Cholesterol is what makes up our cell membranes. What are cells? Cells are just little round things that stack up together, make tissue. The tissues stack up together and make our organs. So really we're made up of cells. And so if you think about it, we need cholesterol for healthy cell membranes, for fluidity in those cells, membranes. So cholesterol is extremely important for that. And then it helps with hormone production. It helps keep our brains sharp. So it has a lot of role in the body. And you know what? If it wasn't important, our liver would not be producing 90% of our cholesterol anyway. So it doesn't matter. We used to be of the notion, like if I ask a question right now, feel free to answer. What do you think are the foods that should be avoided in order for a healthy heart? Like what are some of the popular things you may have heard? Fats? Yes, fats. Anyone else? Organ meats, okay, very good. Organ meats, fats. What type of fats? Any guesses? Saturated fats. So what are these saturated fats? Butter, ghee, eggs, right? These are the devil's food if you talk about heart health. But the research has changed around these foods. I know people who come to me who haven't touched an egg in 20 years, and yet their cholesterol levels are still soaring high, right?
That's the one thing when someone get to know that they have cholesterol, like my brother, he's only 32, and he's like, okay, I'm not gonna eat egg anymore, I'll just take simple bread and tea.
Yes, so that's what we're doing. We're ditching the eggs, we're ditching the beef. We are really going and opting for low-fat dairy products because we don't want to get cholesterol. But the question is, okay, when you remove these foods, which in my opinion are extremely nutrient-dense foods, what are you replacing them with? More often than not, if we're not having eggs for breakfast, what are we having? We're having white bread, we're having processed foods. So my question is, which really confuses me, is that we're removing the foods that have, and eggs are not just cholesterol, they're so much more. They have fat-soluble vitamins, they have choline, which is amazing for your brain health. It keeps you satiated, right? Fat is an important macronutrient. It's not just, we don't have macronutrients to avoid, and that goes for everything. Carbs are not bad, fats are not bad, protein is not bad. We have to come out of that, pull ourselves from that mentality that any of these macronutrients are bad. We just need to understand and learn how to opt for foods that will work for us and what are the foods that are not working for us. So when we avoid foods and avoid eggs and meat and all of these other nutrient-rich foods, we're replacing them with more carbohydrates. And I'll talk to you about what carbohydrates do in just a moment. So we spoke a little bit about inflammation and how we can encourage more anti-inflammatory foods in the diet, and how do you know, by the way, like even if you don't go to the doctor's office and don't get those blood tests done, how will you know how you have inflammation? Well, your signs and symptoms will tell you. How do you feel when you wake up in the morning? Do you feel aches and pains? If you have pain in the body, you have inflammation. If you have arthritis or any of itises, I like to say any of the itis family diseases, itis means inflammation. That means you have inflammation. And like I said, all modern diseases that we are seeing is based in inflammation. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time on inflammation there. The next thing that I want to talk about is blood sugar management. And like I said, cholesterol, all the cholesterol-rich foods, by the way, are excellent for your blood sugar management, right? Think about it. Eggs, beef, it's a protein. It's not going to raise your blood sugar levels as much as something like white bread would. Or even for some people, after working for so many years with people, I find that even oatmeal in the morning does not work for them if you are making a healthier choice. Now, I'm not saying that oatmeal is bad. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that for some people who have diabetes, extreme blood sugar dysregulation, it doesn't work. And there are ways to make it work by incorporating and embracing healthy fats. You see, when we're talking about blood sugar regulation, and we're going to talk a lot more about diabetes and blood sugar management in the weeks to come, but I just wanted to take a little moment here that if you think about all three macronutrients, and by the way, guys, if you're not familiar with what macronutrients are, we have three macronutrients that make up our plate. Protein, which comes mostly from animal sources, so chicken, turkey, eggs, beef, goat, lamb, those are our protein-rich foods. And then we have fats, healthy fats, hopefully. So what are these healthy fat foods? Butter, ghee, avocados, olives, nuts and seeds, all of these fatty fish, organ meats. These are all of our foods that fall under the category of healthy fats. And then we have carbohydrates, right? Now carbohydrates are being villainized. But let me tell you, there are two types of carbohydrates. There's ultra-processed carbs, and then there are healthier carbs that come from nature. So the carbs that you want to choose are the ones that come from a tree or come from the ground, that are packaged with fiber. So fruits and vegetables. A lot of people are surprised to hear that fruits and vegetables are actually carbohydrates. They are. They're nature's carbs, and those are the ones that we want to focus more on. And then, so these three are the macronutrients that we have. Now, blood sugar. When we talk about blood sugar management, which macronutrient has the most impact on blood sugar levels? It's the carbohydrates, right? So, and again, if you have blood sugar dysregulation, diabetes, prediabetes, what have you, you don't have to avoid carbs. You just have to learn to create a balanced plate. For instance, if you're having an apple for snack, It's great, it's a carb, yes, but you want to balance it out, especially if you have blood sugar dysregulation. And who doesn't past the age of 40, right? Even younger and younger people in their 30s are now developing prediabetes and diabetes. So everybody, I think, needs to learn about building healthy, balanced plates. And how can you create a balanced plate? By making sure that every time you're eating something, it has all 3 of the macronutrients, right? So you don't want to have carbs alone. You want to dress them up a little bit, right? How can you dress them up? How can you dress up that apple? Because I guarantee if you're eating that apple in 10 minutes, 20 minutes, you're going to feel hungry again. So how can you dress that up? Add a little bit of fat. Fat is the only macronutrient that has absolutely no impact on your blood sugar levels, right? So if you imagine your blood sugar levels to be on a curve, fat's straight line. Carbohydrate, it goes up like a mountain, comes down like a mountain. So this is representative of your energy levels. So your energy, you feel amazing when you have carbohydrates, right? Your energy levels are here. And it also depends on what type of carbohydrates you're choosing. If you're gonna eat a packet of chips, your energy levels are gonna go here and then you're gonna come crashing down. So that's what happens with carbohydrates. An apple is a great choice because it's not gonna do that crashy thing. It's going to give you energy in a nice little hill-like fashion. So then fats, as you can see, it's straight line, doesn't have any impact on your blood sugar levels, and then protein is extremely satiating. Have you ever noticed that you can never overeat on a steak? It's just you have a little bit and it's enough, right? But you keep on eating more and more of carbohydrates, especially the carbohydrates that are devoid of fiber. So that's what we want to choose for healthy blood sugar levels. And wait a second, I thought this was a heart healthy talk, right? What am I doing talking about blood sugar management? Because blood sugar dysregulation has a direct impact on your heart health. It's not just 2 things. I'm a functional nutritionist, so that means I'm looking at your body as a whole. It's not just a heart problem, it's an everything problem. And that's why I want to mention all of these other facets of your life that can impact your heart, like inflammation, blood sugar dysregulation. So blood sugar, how can you get a hold of your blood sugar levels? Obviously, you can get in touch with your doctor, your primary care physician, get HbA1c checked. And a lot of times, and folks, when you go to the doctor's office, get a copy of those blood work. Learn how to interpret those basic markers. Have a look at your HbA1c markers. What's HbA1c? It's an average of your 3-month average of your blood sugar levels, right? What is the ideal, like the optimal level of blood sugars that you want to aim for? It's somewhere around 4.8 to 5.3. And your doctor will not flag the results until it's over 6, right? So there's so much room for you to be working on this stuff way before you ever develop any type of disease. So prevention is the name of the game, guys. So get your HbA1c checked regularly on a yearly basis. Have a look at that number. Is it 5.8? Is it 5.9? Is it 6.7? Are you full-blown diabetic? There's lots of things that you can do with diet and nutrition and lifestyle choices to bring that blood sugar levels down and avoid your risk of heart disease. You are at a higher 2 to 3 times more likelihood you have 2 to 3 times more, you are more likely to develop heart disease if you have blood sugar dysregulation. Okay, so another thing about heart health is triglycerides. You may have heard of triglycerides. It's not as fashionable, it doesn't get as much press as cholesterol does, unfortunately, but triglyceride is also a big thing in determining your heart health. What is triglycerides? It's just a type of a fat, and it gets built up in your system, in your liver especially, when you have excess carbohydrates in your diet. So what happens? Let's say, what is the purpose of eating carbs anyway? It's to give us energy. All 3 micronutrients have a purpose. So the carbohydrates have the purpose of giving us energy, protein gives us amino acids, it keeps us sharp, it produces antibodies, and fats keep us satiated, and not to mention my favorite function, it makes food taste amazing, right? So throw a little bit of butter on that steak or throw a little bit of butter on that chicken breast and it will really change the nutrient profile as well as the taste profile. So all of these macronutrients have a function in the body. Similarly, triglycerides, they when you eat too much carbohydrates, too many carbohydrates, what happens? They're energy, right? But if we're living a sedentary lifestyle where we're just sitting 9 to 5 at our desks, or we're not moving our bodies, what is happening to that excess energy? It's just building up. We're storing that energy, right? And how do we store energy? We store it, the extra sugar that's going around in our bloodstream, the body converts it into fat, stores it in the liver in the form of triglycerides, in hopes that someday we would go for that walk, or we pick up some weights, or we climb that mountain, and we use and tap into that stored fat storage and utilize it back for fuel. But that day never comes, right? Because we're living the same routine where we're sitting down 9 to 5, we're not moving our bodies, we're sitting in front of Netflix and binge watching our favorite shows, right? That time never comes. We're constantly eating. We're not going hungry anymore, right? We have a pantry full of snacks. We drive outside. There's so many temptations at every corner. That time never comes where we can tap into our stored fat storage stores and get that energy from there. It just doesn't happen. What happens when there's excess triglycerides in the blood? You are more likely to develop fatty liver disease. You are more likely to have heart disease. So triglyceride is another important marker. And again, what do we do? Another misconception is we need to remove all fats and oils from our diet to make sure that triglycerides are coming down. I would like to say that we need to choose the right choices, make the right choices when it comes to fats. Now fats, it's not the 70s anymore. We used to vilify fats in the 60s and 70s. Low fat everything, margarines, everybody was kind of ignoring butter and trading butter for margarine. But now margarine is one of the, I think the biggest takeaway from this talk would be embracing healthy fats back into your diet. That is my goal today, at least. So margarine, if you're still using margarine, make sure that you know what you're putting into your body. You're putting trans fats into your body, which directly there's studies now, there's no question, everybody agrees on this. Trans fats directly impact your heart health and cause major cardiovascular disease. So where do we get these trans fats from? From margarine, from those Crisco-like oils, you know, these polyunsaturated fats. These fats are liquid at room temperature. To make them hard, like butter, saturated fats are usually hard at room temperature, right? Like if you think of butter, it doesn't melt as easily. So polyunsaturated fats, these are liquid at room temperature, and to make them solid at room temperature, they go through a process which creates trans fats, and trans fats are directly linked with increased cardiovascular risk. So if you are still using, I'd rather you use some butter in your food every day than going for the refined oils, the processed oils, and as well as the processed hardened fats. And these are the same kind of fats that you will find in fried foods. So if you're consuming fried foods regularly, now once in a while it's fine. I'm not talking about the once in a while. Your lifestyle is dependent and made up of all the choices you make on an everyday basis. It's not the one birthday party that you went to and had a little bit of a samosa or whatever your indulgence is, right? That's not the problem. The problem is your everyday. So if you're having fried foods on a regular basis, you want to cut back. Also, the more healthier you are, the more leeway you have to enjoy these foods. So that's another kind of incentive to be healthier. At least it is for me.
Towards healthy life choices, let's say most of the time, and then maybe leave some room out for our indulgences.
Yes, absolutely. 80-20 is my rule. So 80% of the time you make the right choices for your everyday, then 20% of your time just let your guard down, because those foods, I like to say, they're good for the soul, right? What's the point of living a boring, plain life when you're not indulging from time to time? Because honestly, that's unhealthy too. Not having any indulgences, not enjoying your food, and food is so much more than just health, right? It's also social connection. We bond over food. It's so much more. It's celebration. So that's the once in a while. Like I said, it doesn't matter. It's the every single day. The breakfast we had this morning, the lunch we're going to have today in the evening, and it's Saturday. Maybe if you're going out for dinner and enjoying a little bit of piece of a sweet dessert, that's not going to break anything. It's the everyday, guys. Okay, so next, we've spoken about inflammation. Okay, moving forward, I also just quickly wanted to touch on cholesterol a little bit. The American Dietary Association in 2015 removed cholesterol, the upper tolerable limit of cholesterol. It used to be 300 mg. Now 300 mg is really kind of bizarre because one egg has around a little less than 200 mg of cholesterol in it. So if you're having 2 eggs for breakfast, that's way over 300, right? You've already reached your limit. So what, you're not gonna have any chicken? Chicken is supposed to be the lowest in cholesterol, by the way, guys. So if you're having cholesterol, if you're having chicken, does that mean that's too much cholesterol? That's not the case. And then if you're not gonna have chicken or steak or anything, then what are you gonna replace that with, is my question. Are you going to add more grains to your plate? That's not great for your blood sugar levels. And as we've learned earlier, blood sugar levels are also impacted in heart health. So what are we to do? That is why American Dietary Association removed the upper limit, because they found that the new research is showing that there's absolutely no need to limit cholesterol intake through food. And really, it doesn't have a lot of impact anyway. It just tweaks 10% of it. 90% of our cholesterol, like I said, it's super important for our well-being, is produced in the liver itself. So you really can't move the needle a lot with diet alone anyway. So I'm a big fan of eggs for breakfast. I'm a big fan of keeping beef in the diet. I'm not necessarily afraid of saturated fats. I think there should be a variety of saturated, polyunsaturated, and monounsaturated fats in the diet. You must have heard that Mediterranean diets are great for the heart, right? Surprise, surprise, it's not a low-fat diet. It's pretty high in fats. What are the fats that they use? They use olive oil, they use lots of olives. It's a very meat-heavy diet, guys. They eat a lot of lamb. So it's not that they're not touching any meat or they're not going on a fat-free diet. And what happens when you go on a fat-free diet? You're hungry all the time. You're gonna eat more carbs. You're gonna be hungry. You're not gonna get that satiety. You're not gonna enjoy your food. So it's really not a sustainable diet at all.
So how come most of the endocrinologists ask you to stay away from red meat if you have diabetes? Mm-hmm. How come that's a possibility?
Yeah, so with diabetes, it's surprising that they would say that, but it's more so a recommendation for heart health. And even that is changing. Like I would take research to the doctor and say, hey, these are some of the new research that's coming out, and it's not that these things are causing the heart issues anyway. It's like the whole picture is causing it. And everything in moderation, right? I'm not saying that you should have beef 5 times a week, right? It's just moderation. Once or twice a week should be okay. Eggs, I'm a fan of. I think eggs have been completely been redeemed in my eyes, and they're actually a very healthy food for you. Very healthy food.
I have a question.
Yes.
What about the fasting diet? Some people, they recommend to make a fasting for 23 hours with water and 1 hour in the whole day just to eat the solid food. Is that something useful?
So I like fasting. I like intermittent fasting, but I like it only when it's not that extreme. So the type of fasting that I like is 3 square meals a day. No snacks in the middle if you can help it. Of course, it's not possible for everybody. If you have metabolic syndrome where your blood pressure is high, you're diabetic, you have blood sugar roller coaster, you may not be able to do that right away, but working with somebody like a professional will help you get there. So that's the kind of fasting that I'm a fan of. And then not eating between dinner and breakfast, the 12-14 hours, that's the ideal time in my opinion. And a lot of these, it also depends on the person, right? So for men, there's a lot more research on men with intermittent fasting than there is for women. So women, especially cycling women, I'm not a big fan of fasting more than 12-14 hours, right? And for men, fasting can be great for them, but of course, you wanna really make that 1 or 2 meals count. So you really can't, what happens with fasting is that people fast and then they binge eat. And then they say, oh, I fasted the entire day, I can have my muffin and cakes and cookies, no problem, right? Because they're in the calories in, calories out model. They think they haven't eaten enough calories. But you're really starving your body on a cellular level and you're not getting the nutrients that you need. So it can work, like for triglycerides. I have a husband who had high triglyceride levels, and the way he didn't want to give up his food. So the way he did it was he fasted. So he fasted for like 16, 18 hours, and that did the job. He also incorporated more exercise. I wanted to have him incorporate more greens, but you know, he wanted to take another route. He wanted to do the intermittent fasting route and wanted to eat all the fries. So it works for some people and it doesn't work for others, but for men I find intermittent fasting is a great tool, yes, but 24 hours, it's a little unnecessary. It also depends on the person, what they are struggling with, what they are, yeah.
Some of the diet, some people, they stop eating rice and bread and spaghetti for like 3 months. So is that something good to do it, to have like another resource from the carbohydrate, from the veggies, or that will affect our body somehow?
Yeah, again, it's a very good question. So rice, potatoes, and what's the other thing? Bread, spaghetti, right. So all of these are very refined sources of carbohydrates. You have to think about what are they giving you. They're not really rich in nutrients. They are rich in energy, so they're really high in carbohydrates. If you are somebody who plays every day, you know, you're playing basketball or you go to the gym, you have a little bit more flexibility of increasing those energy-dense carbohydrates. But if you're somebody who's doing a 9-to-5 job, not really moving a lot, then you need to, portion control is the name of the game when it comes to carbohydrates. And then of course you want to choose carbohydrates that come from a tree, come from the land, fruits and vegetables more, and these grain-based carbohydrates a little bit less. And then of course we never eat carbohydrates in isolation, right? We pair them with healthy fats and with protein, with vegetables. So a balance in your meal, a balanced plate is very, very important. Again, it all depends on the person. Somebody who is sitting 9 to 5, not moving a lot, is in their 60s, their carbohydrate consumption will look very different than somebody who's in their 30s, very active, running around, and they have a very physically demanding job. The reason I don't talk about supplements is that people forget about all the lifestyle things and they kind of jump to supplements thinking that this supplement is going to do it all and I can have whatever. But yeah, supplements are a big part of my practice. Like for instance, like I said, blood pressure management, I definitely add in magnesium and add in potassium as well and some electrolytes to balance it out. And then the salt recommendation also changes, which I forgot to mention here. But I really like to move away from the refined white salt and maybe go for like a sea salt or Himalayan pink salt. That comes from Pakistan, so I'm a huge fan of that. So pink salt has all of the minerals that you need, not just sodium alone. Yes?
I have a question, like, is this the diabetic is reversible?
I'm sorry?
Diabetes reversible?
Diabetes, it is, yes, I can say that you can, it's not that it's going to be cured, it's just that you have to learn to manage it. So it is definitely, you can bring the levels down, you can reverse your diabetes and bring it down to like a healthier level for sure. There's a misconception that once you're on insulin you can never come off of insulin. That's also not true. I've seen it happen in my practice time and time again. So you can come off of insulin, you can cut back your dose of blood pressure medication. Things happen. You just need to give the body the ideal environment and the food that it needs to heal, and then it can happen.
Against heart disease and diabetes.
Drinking water can help with diabetes and heart, yes. So water, people who are chronically dehydrated, they have more of something that's called metabolic syndrome. So what is metabolic syndrome? We see it a lot in our South Asian population where blood pressure is high, triglycerides are high, cholesterol is high, blood sugar is high, weight circumference is high. So we see there are some studies to show that dehydration can also exacerbate the metabolic syndrome for sure. And then obviously if you have blood pressure issues, you want to be well hydrated so that your circulation is the name of the game when it comes to your heart. So moving your body, drinking lots of water, making sure that your blood is nice and thin so that it goes where it needs to go. Blood flow is all about, why does blood flow anyway? It's because the nutrients in the blood need to go where they belong, right? And what's the delivery mechanism? It's the blood. So drinking water is absolutely key. It's all the basics when you come to think about it. Eating your green leafy vegetables, staying away from processed sugary foods, getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep at night, exercising and moving your body. It's all in the basics.
How we can deal with the weird question from our families? Why you are still fat? Why you're not healthy? So this is like apart from our mental health. If we are in an environment not supporting or not positive, so whatever we did, whatever we put effort on it, for young people or for the elder people, like you want to die early, we listen all for this information from many of our families. So how we can educate ourselves to know how to speak with someone, maybe he's harming himself with the food.
That is a challenge that I find in my family as well sometimes, so you're not alone. It's hard, but what I have noticed is we can only change our own behavior. We cannot change anybody else's mind. So we just focus on ourselves, do what we need to do, and trust me, when they see positive changes in your blood work, in your physical movement, the way you have more energy, they will be wanting to know what you did. So the proof is in the pudding. So when you work on yourself, I think that's the best way. I've learned, when I first found this information, I wanted to scream it from the rooftops. I would want to say it to everybody and anybody, like, what are you doing? Change your diet, why are you eating this? But I slowly over the years learned that the best way to go about it is just continue educating and do what works for you and just work on yourself, and then the rest will just fall in line. So it's useless arguing with somebody who's not willing to listen, but just showing them with your own actions is the best way. All right, so the last thing that I want to focus on for heart health is calcium. So a lot of times cholesterol gets all the spotlight, but calcium is also found in the arteries. So how does calcium get there? I thought calcium was a good thing, right? Having more calcium is good, but it's only good if it's in the right place, if it's in your teeth, if it's in your bones. It has no business being in your arteries. How does it get there? So that's where, if you think about it, the fats come in. Why? Because if you're incorporating a lower fat diet where you're not eating and staying away from these good healthy fatty foods like nuts and seeds and olives and olive oil and butter and ghee and all of those wonderful foods, then you're putting yourself at a risk of having fat soluble vitamin deficiency. What are these fat soluble vitamins? These are A, D, E, K. A and E, they are great for anti-inflammatory activity, and vitamin D and K, they are responsible for putting calcium where they belong in the bones, in addition with magnesium. So magnesium is a mineral, vitamin D and K is a fat-soluble vitamin. Both of these together are going to put calcium where they belong. So if you are deficient in vitamin D, if you are deficient in vitamin K, if you don't have a magnesium-rich diet, guess where calcium is going to go? It's going to go in your tissues. It's going to go in your eyes, creating cataracts. It's going to go in your arteries, creating heart disease. So that's something to think about as well. So we need to think back, like what are we doing on a cellular level to our health and our body? So that's mostly what I have. To summarize, we need to manage inflammation by adding anti-inflammatory foods. We need to take account of our blood sugar levels. We need to match our carbohydrate intake with the amount of activity that we have throughout the day. And if you're confused about what that looks like, you can always work with somebody like a nutritionist or a dietitian even, who can help you out with that. And then you want to add in the healthy fats, embrace the healthy fats, get the gunky bad fats out of your diet, embrace the eggs, embrace a little bit of meat, because remember, what are you replacing it with? Always think about that. And you want to manage your blood sugar levels, you want to manage your inflammation, you want to manage your stress, you want to get that hydration in. Hydration is also very important. Manage your weight, because with every time you gain weight, your blood pressure, your heart has to work harder because there's more arteries and more blood that needs to circulate. So try to lose some pounds. That is going to look different for everybody. Not everybody looks the same. But whatever your healthy weight is, try to opt for that. And just the basics, good sleep, managing stress, managing inflammation, getting all these good foods in, learning and getting educated about everything. That is the key. And guys, remember how I said we get heart disease 10 years earlier? We need those 10 years back. who's gonna serve samosas to everybody then, right? So we need those 10 years and do things that we are good at doing and stick around for longer. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Zuher, for covering this event. It was fabulous. I had a great time. I hope that all our seniors learned something today. And in the future, I have plans to talk a lot about other health challenges that our seniors are presented with, like diabetes, mental health issues, Alzheimer's, etc. So stay tuned for more.
We reach the end of our episode. Thank you for watching. So if you find this episode helpful, so please share it with your seniors, and hopefully they will get the benefit from this valuable advices. Again, thank you for watching. If you like this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to see our upcoming episodes.